Stimulants in Tarkov are very powerful, but what makes them strong isn't so much what their effects are or how long they last, but instead the fact that many stimulants in the game have weak side effects after the buffs wear off. For how diverse of a range the positive effects are and how useful they can be in a variety of situations, it's strange to me that most of the stims almost have no downside to using them. Something that makes you reconsider popping this particular stim because there may be no coming back from it. It doesn't have to kill you once the effect wears off, but these things are like free stat boosts for a prolonged period of time. And because of that, not only do people use and abuse the stims, they combine them with other stims to make powerful concoctions that would rival real-life PEDs. There are a couple examples of downsides actually having a drastic effect on your PMC once they kick in, but Tarkov would benefit from having harsher penalties after many of the stim effects wear off. I know, it sounds blasphemous, but this is a mechanic in the game that isn't tied down to any sense of realism. That conversation has left many years ago, so don't think about stimulants from that perspective. Instead, if we're going to have items that grant powerful boosts to stats or other effects to a player, how do we balance them more properly so there are costs and risks associated with using them? People might immediately poo-poo the idea of nerfing stimulants this way, but I suppose my next question would be, would you rather have BSG gut all the gun stims so they're useless? Probably not. These things are just inherently too powerful. Again, not the effects that provide once used, but not having any semblance of penalty or risk once they wear off. Having effects that are synonymous with certain stimulants creates these moments where you might open your injector container and go for something like a Zagustin, for example, which of course fixes all bleeds and prevents any more occurring for 200 seconds. But what if, after that effect wears off, instead of just a loss in hydration recovery, you instead are now twice as susceptible to bleeds for 60 to 90 seconds? It creates this play of, you can fix this problem now, but after it's over, you better be in a position where you don't have to deal with it, otherwise you suffer the consequences of using the stim in the first place. It forces the player to seriously consider if they need the stim right now to get them out of a bind, or is there another choice, another option available that can solve their problem. This is just one example. We would be here for a long time if we went through this for every single stim in the game, but you get the idea. Tarkov's entire gameplay loop is all about risk versus reward, so why don't the stimulants lean into this when the medical system already does? As of right now, the only injector that feels like you need to have a plan once it wears off is Trimladol, which provides a bonus 10 skill points to strength, endurance, attention, stress resistance for 3 minutes. But the downside, while only being reducing your energy and hydration, this side effect will actually nuke those numbers, forcing you to fend for food and water. The most basic penalty, but it's severe enough that it cannot be taken lightly. The Obdalbos I wouldn't technically count in this context of harsh penalties because it's kind of a gimmick injector where you can have the chance to get a massive buff from across a variety of soft skills, but you also have the chance of just straight up dying, which, don't get me wrong, is really funny sometimes, but maybe that downside is a little too extreme. On top of inflicting harsher penalties on most injectors, the idea on paper of being able to pop multiple stims back to back to back and having their effects stack on top of each other kinda makes sense. However, in practice, it essentially creates meta combinations that turns your PMC into a super soldier. The best example of this is stacking an SJ6, a Melatonin, and Trimladol together for true marathon levels of performance. You literally don't lose stamina while sprinting, in fact you actually gain it while on the move. It's a wild combination, and honestly something that should be brought into question. Should we be able to stack injectors together? Again, on paper it sounds cool and you think, how bad could it be? And then the players figure out which stims work best together, and late game Tarkov turns into how juiced can I get my PMC before he just falls over dead. It feels like legal steroids or any performance enhancing drugs. What makes this sting even more is it boils down to your ruble count. Stimulants are not cheap, especially late game, and when you are popping these every single raid, it becomes quite costly, so only those who have the capital to purchase and run these stims every raid get to feel the benefits the most. To me, this way of using injectors is really antithetical to why they were added in the first place, a last-ditch effort to get you out of a jam that could swing a potential gunfight or just crappy position into something that feels winnable. And then afterwards, you have to deal with the consequences of using that injector by having a more lethargic and vulnerable PMC. But sadly, that's just not how they operate at all. I'm going to propose something, and no one is going to like it, and that's fine, but Propadol needs heavier penalties after its effect wears off. It's the most common, most sought after, and most used stimulant in the game. A 2-second painkiller that regenerates 1 health point every second. It's very powerful even if the health is as slow as 1 per second. If given enough time, that can heal any chip or more serious damage without needing to pause and heal manually. And the fact that once the entire stimulant is over, the only 2 downsides are tunnel vision and tremors, it really doesn't make people think twice about using it. I mean, I have seen clips of people just getting hit by a scav and taking only minimal blunt damage, pop a Propadol out of pure habit and even panic. We use them like candy, and no injectors should be that common. So, hypothetically, what should the new side effect be? It's kind of hard to say. If I want to be brutally honest, my take is the side effects can stay the same. However, Propadol is once again no longer a painkiller. It is a slow heal over time stimulant. At one point in its life, BSG removed the painkiller effect from Propadol and the community was in an uproar. But to be honest, I didn't mind that. It lost the ability to be this all-in-one injector that can be used at any time and solves all your problems. By losing its painkiller effect, it became more about winning a war of attrition. You could sustain damage, and slowly, by using proper cover and flanking maneuvers, you would slowly top up your health and be ready for a fight once again. To me, it was mechanically deeper than just pressing the button when I take damage or just can't run. So in this instance, the side effects are actually fine, but remove the painkiller and it becomes more interesting, not less. Stimulants are such an interesting mechanic in Tarkov, but what keeps them out of being in the greats is the lack of diverse side effects that truly makes you think and consider if a stimulant is worth using at this particular moment in time. The days of pre-popping injectors before every single fight, or worse, at the start of a raid, would theoretically be gone. You would need to use them wisely, lest you suffer the harmful new and dangerous side effects they all should have. People are definitely not gonna like these ideas I've proposed, and that's fine, but come on, seriously, let's shake the game up a little bit, make it more interesting. The medical system in Tarkov is already so rich and deep. What's one more layer, you know? These specific examples don't have to be the ones that get used, but something, anything more than what we currently have would really go a long, long way. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on all the changes to injectors, should they be more harmful to the players, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about potentially controversial changes to a system that has been rather set in stone for far too long. I hope to see you in future ones.